Hello, and welcome to On the Preds with me, your host, Alex Daugherty of A to Z Sports. And I'm here with Sean Smith of On the Forecheck as usual. What's going on, Sean? How are you? And welcome back. We had a week off, and then now we are back to talk about the Preds. What is up?
We spent a lot of time recently at Fordyce Center with my son, getting him ready for. He's got a big game today. He's playing. I'm not sure what position. They're kind of playing positionless hockey right now. The Roman Yossi special,
Right.
And so after we get done recording here, we'll be headed back there for his first big game. So
Okay.
been keeping pretty busy with that, and he's pretty jazzed up. So.
All right. That sounds awesome. So hopefully that goes well. The youth hockey is always fun to watch. It's always, I imagine it's probably a little like nerve-wracking. I don't know if that's the word. But
At this age, I don't think they're hitting hard enough. They're just bumping into each other accidentally, and then they apologize and help each other up. So it's
right.
It's not so bad. It's good.
Well, one day we will have a podcast where we recap all of your son's hockey games, I'm sure. But today we are going to recap the Nashville Predators, the NHL games, and I think we didn't do a show last week. What we're going to do on tonight. 2 weeks ago, the Predators had lost 4 in a row, including a 5-3 loss to the Blues and a 3-1 loss to the Vancouver Canucks at home. It was really not good, and people were thinking, "Oh no." But then they found their winning ways again. They beat the Winnipeg Jets 5-2 at home, and then they beat the Detroit Red Wings 4-1. And then people were saying, "Oh yes." So that brings us to this week. We are going to talk about the Seattle Kraken win in last Tuesday, and then we're going to talk about the shootout loss to Edmonton, and then we're going to talk a lot about, as you might have guessed, Mr. Filip Forsberg, because there's a lot of things going on with him. He's been crazy good recently. And we're going to try to discuss maybe the signing situation and perhaps what comes next. So, sound good?
I'm really excited about it. I can't wait. Let's do it right now.
So last Tuesday at Seattle, despite an early goal by Seattle's Jared McCann, the Preds were really on their game pretty early on. The first thing that happened for the Predators that was good, Luke Cunnin did his best Alex Ovechkin impersonation. He ripped one from the Ovi spot to tie the game 1-1. And then just after Seattle went ahead 2-1 in the second period, Filip Forsberg, who we know and love, he packed up his toiletries, he loaded up his garment bag, he bought his plane ticket, and he went coast to coast.
Well, this game really opened up, and watch Forsberg, who just creates all kinds of space coming from behind his own net. And then this shot is just wired far side, posted in. But tough to...
Definitely one of the best goals that I've seen this year. A pretty incredible performance from him. What did you think when you saw that?
Let me just say, look, my kids watch this show, Alex. You're going to have to give some kind of warning before you show that type of content. It's incredibly graphic. It's upsetting. I don't need my kids having nightmares going to sleep tonight. I don't want to have certain conversations I'm not ready to have with them. Okay, so next time, for their sake, if no one else's, just a little bit of heads up. Didn't know it was coming. Caught me off guard.
This particular goal is definitely one not for children, but it was pretty amazing the way he saw that path up the ice, the speed to get there. At one point people thought Filip Forsberg didn't have the speed to play in the NHL. That was part of his draft. One of the knocks on him in the draft back in 2012, 10 years ago. And anyways, obviously he has the speed to play in the NHL. Obviously he's good enough to play in the NHL as he's about to get a massive contract at the age of 27. So anyway, so that tied the game at 2-2. And I guess the Kraken were just reeling from that goal because just a minute later, Matthias Ekholm skates in and around the Seattle net and puts home the go-ahead goal. The Predators would not relinquish that lead, continuing their trend of holding on to leads in the third period. They moved to 21-0-1, undefeated in regulation when leading after 2 periods. Still a very, very impressive mark. 4-2 is the final. They beat Seattle.
I want to say a little bit about why that is such an impressive mark, because I've seen it get posted on Twitter. I've seen people talk about it, and I've seen people argue that that's not that important of a stat. It's like, well, but they're leading after 2. I mean, they should be winning. And I think that's the whole focus, is that we've seen this team in the past not win in the third after coming in with a lead. And and I think that's one of the more encouraging signs this season, is that you see a team that can play with a lead instead of a team that goes ahead and starts to turtle and gets taken advantage of. And I think if you want to be encouraged or inspired moving forward this season, regardless of what's happening with the standings, you're seeing a team that can go into a third period with a lead and hold on to that lead. And that's
overall the record. I actually wrote about this a while back before it was 21. It was like, I don't know, when they were like 17-0-1 or something. And yeah, I mean, yes, the obvious answer is most teams hold on to leads when they're in the third period. It's comebacks in the NHL are actually pretty difficult and pretty rare. And most of the time they happen, the other team ties the game and either wins it in overtime if that happens. However, there are plenty of teams that don't do that. I mean, most teams, when they have leads in the third period, come away with a win. But for the Predators to not have a single loss after that, and it's not just, by the way, it's not just leading like by a lot of goals. I mean, it's just one. It's leading by at least one goal, and there's plenty of times when the Predators only have one goal. And then also, but keep in mind, they also have a very impressive record when leading after 1 period, which is more impressive. Which is also impressive. They are, let's see, after 1, 17-0. 17-0-0 when leading after 1. How about that? I mean, that's very impressive. So
that's what you want. You go back a couple of seasons, and you would see this team come out hot. First period, light it up, throw some goals up there, get a big lead, and then they come out for the second period and tank. And I don't know if this is just a matter of playing to that identity that the coach talks about so much, but you're not seeing a team that comes out after 1 or comes out after 2 and tries to nurse a lead to victory. They're continuing to play hard and put goals up. And that is encouraging. Big time.
I was just going to look at so the Seattle Kraken, who the Predators just beat on last Tuesday, their record when leading after 2 is 8-3. 8-3-1. They have 3 losses in regulation. So 3 times that team that the Predators just beat had someone come back on them in the third period and beat them. So, by the way, the Seattle Kraken are not very good. I mean, that should go without saying. They are probably going to finish in last place in their division. Really crazy to think about how different the results are for the 2 expansion teams, Vegas and Seattle. How just incredibly lucky Vegas was to have their expansion come first so that they could take advantage of the rules. And then Seattle had to be, unfortunately, watch as the rest of the league learn from what happened in Vegas. Anyways, we don't have to talk too much about that.
I had a whole conversation about that exact thing yesterday. That's exactly
really?
How for me. Yeah, you have Vegas come in and not just take advantage of the rules. I mean, the rules are the same, but they took advantage of every other GM out there who was afraid to lose something they didn't want to lose, and they profited just phenomenally. And then by the time the Kraken draft comes around, they're like, yeah, we're not doing this again.
It's crazy to think about. I mean, like it's did you watch Squid Game?
No.
Okay.
I'm one of the few. I want to.
It's not important. There's a scene in that where there's a game they have to play where the person who goes first has an advantage, and the person who goes last is extremely disadvantaged, such that they are going to die.
Right.
And that's basically what happened with Seattle. Is Vegas got to go first, so they got to take advantage of all the loopholes. And then by the time Seattle came around, all the loopholes got closed. None of the teams were willing to work with Seattle, and they got screwed. And they got a team that is going to finish in last place. So the Predators beat a team that's not very good. Then on Thursday, they have to go to Edmonton to face a team that is struggling in a lot of ways. Edmonton just has a lot of issues going on. They've got some inner strife with their star players. They just signed Evander Kane for some stupid reason. They've got issues with their goaltender calling out their GM or their coach. They should be a lot better than they are because they've got two of the best players in the world in Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid. Man, they got a lot of issues. So the Predators followed up that visit in Seattle with a tough visit to Edmonton. They get the game started off right with another goal by Filip Forsberg. This time it was just really shoddy defending, I thought, by Edmonton. They just left Filip Forsberg with plenty of room in the right circle, and he just has so much time to shoot on Koskinen, and he scores. But then the world's best player, as I mentioned, scores just another silly goal, moving in easily on Matt Benning, surprising UC Saros with a very good short side shot that I think he wasn't expecting. That tied the game late in the first. I think it gave the Oilers a little bit of momentum and some confidence, even though Matt Duchene, a few minutes later in the second period, answers McDavid's effort with what I thought was a really, really nice transition goal. I want to look at this real quick. Duchene does something here that I thought was really, really great. I wish I could do this. This is just amazing. This is what I try to do when I play hockey, but I'm not as good as Matt Duchene. This is what he did.
And for Duchene, he just got in behind Duncan Keith. Duncan Keith took the gamble, tried to knock that down for Duchene. He took the gamble. That gets kept in there, and that's a different highlight reel that you're going to see the next day, that's for sure. But on this one, it pays off for him. He takes the gamble, the puck gets through. And boy, did he ever put that bar down.
So that shot right there is just incredible because he's in transition, he's moving forward, so he doesn't have to he's getting the shot off quickly. But first, the other thing, he's changing the angle at the very, very last second. He's changing the angle on the goalie. He's changing the release point. It's like a halfway between a snapshot and a wrist shot because he's in a snapshot position, but he's wristing it, so he's got a little bit more control of where it goes. It's kind of fluttering. If you look at the shot, it's not really like a really hard shot, but I think that's because he changed the angle at the last second. Anyways, it's just incredible. And the placement perfect. It's like off the bar and in. Koskinen had no chance. So really just an amazing goal by Matt Duchene. That tied the game. No, that put the Preds up 2-1.
Yeah.
But then the Oilers would tie the game. I think Evan Bouchard scored. I think is who it was. Doesn't matter. Tied the game into overtime. And then we have a shootout where Connor McDavid does some magic, secures the second point for Edmonton with a nice, very nice shootout goal on UC Saros. Saros just got fooled. He got completely fooled. No way around it.
Who among us?
Do what?
Who among us wouldn't have been fooled by that?
Yeah, it was an amazing. I mean, it's the world's best player with the puck. He's just did that thing. So the Predators lose 3-2 in a shootout. So
Alex, I'm not discouraged by that, and I feel like there's probably maybe I'm too busy after losses trying to find the silver lining. Like you could probably accuse me of that, but I want to be realistic here. The Predators had to play against a team that had both Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl on it. They had to do that for 60 minutes, and in those 60 minutes, realistically, they held them to one goal. And when I say one goal, it's because that second goal was a double deflection. That shot got redirected twice. And
that's right.
It just, what are you going to do? I mean, just like we said, what are you going to do against Connor McDavid in that shootout goal? I mean, you can be UC Saros, you can be Shaun C. Smith. It doesn't matter. He's going to score on that goal. Mm-hmm. That other one, the double redirect, what are you going to do? I mean, you can't stop that. It's hard. So, right. Yeah, they ended up going into overtime. Yeah, they ended up losing in the shootout. And, okay, at least they came away with 1 point. But realistically, if it hadn't been for that double deflection, they would have come away with 2, and they wouldn't have had to go to overtime. And doing that against a team, regardless of the struggles, that has Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl on it, still pretty impressive. That's a fast team. That's a team they've typically, in the recent past, had a hard time slowing down. And the fact that they're able to kind of put the screws to them a little bit more and force that game to be a little more physical, I think that showed. because it took someone like McDavid getting loose and working his magic to make things happen. And again, you want to find something encouraging in every game. To me, that's encouraging.
The problem with McDavid to me is he is so fast, and he sees the track to the net like no one else. You can't play traditional defense. You can't play up on him to bump him off the puck because he can get around you, and you can't play back because he can obviously skate, circles around you. So like, I don't know exactly the way to do it. When he gets going, that's the problem. There's really no way to stop it. I mean, you just have to hope that he flubs the puck or misses the shot. I mean, it's really, really tough, or your goaltender is ready to make a save. And he not only does that, but he also has insane puck handling. I've never seen puck handling like his. He is so fast, and he uses every part of the blade to make the puck move just in these little increments that are just he's incredible at it. I mean, I've never seen when I first started watching Patrick Kane play with the puck, I was like, wow, that guy's incredible with the puck. He's really, really good. Connor McDavid is better. I mean, he's better than everyone I've ever seen at puck handling. It's crazy.
Have you seen the movie, Alex, Catch Me If You Can, with Leonardo DiCaprio and Tom Hanks?
Yeah.
There's a line in there. There's a line in there I like, and it's like something like, why the Yankees always win, or why nobody ever beats the Yankees? It's because they're too busy staring at the pinstripes.
Yeah.
And I think that's realistically what it comes down to with Connor McDavid. Like he's going to score because you're mesmerized by what he's doing with that puck. And I don't know how to explain it. Like, I feel like you could be a defender, you could be a top defender in the league and just watch him blow by you, and you could look silly, and people would probably go, yeah, I would have done the same thing. Just I would have stopped and stared because that's incredible.
Yeah.
I don't know. To me, it just – I mean, obviously this isn't the Connor McDavid praise show. Lord knows there's enough of those going on in Canada right now. But, I mean, if you're going to complain about losing to the Oilers, at least it's because Connor McDavid did it for you, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't some supporting cast member that just had a big game and you look silly. It was the best player in the league being the best player in the league. So, whatever. It's fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
They can move on.
Sure. So we are going to talk about Filip Forsberg in a little bit, but before we do that, I just wanted to say, since we've had some time, between today and the last episode, a lot has happened. I think it's probably safe to say the Preds have come back down to earth somewhat. They were in first place for a while, but they're kind of they're definitely behind Colorado. There's no doubt about that. And with Minnesota having like 6 games in hand, I'd say the Preds are very, very solidly in 3rd/4th place in the Central. This is not a surprise, really. I don't think anyone thought they would win the division, not with Colorado and with Minnesota playing the way they are. But I think they're kind of battling right now with St. Louis, who they just lost to a handful of games ago, for 3rd or 4th place, which would put them in a playoff spot. I mean, like I still think at this point they are a playoff team. I don't think they're gonna change dramatically and drop off the face of the earth. I think they've got too many players playing well. UC Soros is a Vezina candidate. Roman Yossi's a Norris candidate. Filip Forsberg's, on up there in goals per game, if not leading it. You've got Tanner Jeannot. You've got role players everywhere. Matt Duchene playing well. So they've got plenty of players doing well enough to keep them in that spot. The weird thing is that they've got this February that's kind of strange. They've got a very light February. There's only 8 games in this month. There were 13 in January. There's 14 in March. So they've got a very light February because, of course, of the way the schedule was made with the Olympics. They had a big gap in the schedule that has been filled somewhat with all the games they had to replace. 5 of their 8 February games are at home, so that's good. But then at the end of February, it kind of caps off with pretty big games. You got the Pecorine game, February 24th against Dallas, Pecorine retirement game, and then 2 days later you've got the Stadium Series game against Tampa. So it's an important month, but it's also a month where there's not a ton of games. So kind of strange. The other thing I thought is, with no back-to-backs in February, and with only 8 games, I think it's probably safe to say David Riddick can just go take a month-long vacation. he's probably not going to start like ever in February.
And it's funny because you say that, and it wasn't very long ago, and somebody asked John Hines about if he was concerned about how the workload that Saros was encountering, and he said, "No, I'm not. I'm not worried about it at all. The way the games have worked out, and I'm assuming he means with no back-to-backs, he's been fine. And I think there's no reason to assume that you're going to see anything other than all Saros when you have no back-to-backs right now.
Yeah, so in between, over the next few weeks. So there's a game Tuesday, then he's got 8 days off in between before the next game, and then 3 days. Well, I guess the 3 days in between games. 3 days, 3 days, 3 days, 4 days, 2 days in between Florida and Dallas. Maybe, well, but UC Saros is going to start Dallas for sure. Maybe Riddick starts the Florida game. I don't know. But the Dallas game with Pecorine, UC Saros starts that game 100%, right?
Yeah, obviously. You can't have your mentor's retirement game and not put the protege in there.
100%. Unless there's an injury or something, he's going to play. And then Tampa, I would imagine Saros plays in the Stadium Series game. So yeah, I think it's going to be a month of UC Saros. So David Riddick, you can go take a vacation. Just take the month off. Go go back home. Go take a trip you wanted to. Go to Guatemala and hike the mountains. Go to the Maldives. I don't know. Go to Japan and Lost in Translation and just immerse yourself in the culture for a month.
What I don't know though. What happens? What happens if he loves it so much he stays?
Connor Ingram's been pretty good.
That's true. He's been on a roll recently. You're definitely not wrong on that. I mean, with Connor Ingram, I know this isn't what we were planning on talking about, but he's got his groove back, right?
Yeah, he's been very good. Yeah,
I think if you're looking, we are coming up on Filbruary, and realistically, if you start looking at how the season ends and when it ends, you've got to start looking with an eye to next season. And we've said, I think, from the beginning of this season that we feel like Riddick is a 1-year situation with them giving Connor Ingram a season in Milwaukee to get back into the groove of the daily grind and get back on his game. And this is kind of exactly what you want to see if you're looking at that situation moving forward. So, maybe you're right. Maybe they just bring him up a little early and you let Riddick go on vacation.
Yeah, just go do whatever you want to, Dave. Vacation Dave. Okay, let's talk about Filip Forsberg because, yes, it is almost Filbruary, that month where Filip Forsberg, the month that Filip Forsberg owns. And here's what I want to talk about. I think that we have reached a point where the decision-making regarding signing Filip Forsberg or not has shifted somewhat. And I think now the prevalent opinion, should be that not signing Filip Forsberg at this point would be a mistake, regardless of the cost. So early on in the season and obviously last year and in the offseason and everything, it was maybe they will, maybe they won't. Either they'll get something for him or they won't. But regardless, the Predators either stand to sign their big forward or they're going to get something out of it and it'll be okay. At this point, I think not signing him would be the bigger mistake. I think if they traded him to get assets or if they let him walk without getting anything, that would be a huge mistake. But not signing him specifically, I think is the bigger mistake to make between the group. Getting draft picks, getting prospects or whatever, I think would not be nearly as beneficial to this team as signing this 27-year-old guy that is just your best offensive threat every night. I think that would be a mistake. What do you think?
I think like you said, letting him walk, getting nothing in return and not signing him is essentially akin to Caesar crossing the Rubicon. And, to me, if you look at, okay, they could trade him and get some things back, or they could sign him. they're going to have a solid goal producer going forward in him if they keep him. If you're getting rid of him at this point, then you're really kind of, and I don't want to say you're just admitting that you're going into fire sale mode, because it's not really a fire sale when it's the end of the season on an expiring contract. But one of two things is going to happen, I think. I think he's going to be re-signed, number one, because I think he wants to be here. I'll say, too, in this, you hate bringing off-ice stuff into these things, but his fiance is from the South. He's going to be getting married soon. There's probably a lot of appeal to staying here and staying close to family for her, which would be the same for him. And at the same time, the other option, he doesn't want to stay here, I think, is what it comes down to.
Yeah.
He either wants to stay and re-signs, or he doesn't want to stay. I think if he wants to stay, I think he's going to get signed no matter what. I think they'll be willing to pony up whatever is being asked for. I don't think it's going to be a problem. I think the only reason he ends up not in a Predators uniform next season is because he didn't want to be here, which at that point would be incredibly surprising to me, not just for the reasons I already mentioned, but for the fact that this is where he's been for a long time. He's comfortable here. There's an element that when we talked about a player like PK Subban enjoying the limelight a little bit more, going to New Jersey, being close to New York, having that opportunity for media and stuff, Forsberg's pretty simple and straightforward. I think he enjoys the anonymity he has here a little bit. His pregame, his game day ritual of playing video games and taking a nap, and he can be pretty low key in the city and not have to worry about people keeping tabs on what he's doing all the time. So I think there's a lot to keep him here, beyond just the fact that he likes playing for the team and he likes being part of the organization.
The other thing is, if it's about money, I agree with everything you said. I think he's probably likely to want to stay here. The only issue is if he was lured away by a team with a interesting, or with a slightly better, makeup of their team. I don't know that this would happen, but I'm saying, like, what if a team like Boston, or I don't know if any of these teams have the money to do this. I'm just throwing out some teams that I think could be in that mix. Boston, New York, potentially somewhere like Montreal. A team that has not only history but also like the ability to say, look, you're going to be the face of our franchise, and also like we can make a cup run. Probably not Montreal. Montreal's not making a cup run. Edmonton would be the other one, and I would say Vegas, but they've already signed like a ton of different guys, all crazy. So I bet they don't have the money.
I don't think so.
So, anyways, I don't know, Anaheim. I don't know, but like there's, when you throw all these potential teams out that could draw him in, could he want to say, you know what, I've had this opportunity at Nashville for 7 years now. Could I make something else work? Could I try to do this same thing at another team and potentially win a Stanley Cup? Now, here's the interesting thing about Nashville's position. I think that they could give him more money than anyone. I mean, their cap situation for next year is pretty good, because of how they handled the Ryan Ellis contract, how the buyouts, the situation, the money that they have going into next year. They have like $25 million, and most of that can go to Filip Forsberg.
Yeah, at least 24.5 million. No, I guess what's funny, you say, another team with history, right? With a longer history that might be more appealing, but I think it's, Forsberg is a big part of this team's history. And so you're kind of wrestling with, do I go to a team with more history, or do I stay with a team where I'm a huge part of that history? Mm-hmm. And I think it's funny, because I don't know that a lot of other players are going to be in that position when they're entering, this end of their contract, because because other teams have such long histories, Forsberg's getting ready to be the owner of a lot of records on this team. He's been there for a lot of the biggest moments for this team, or he's been the reason for a lot of the biggest moments on this team. So I think that appeal of I can stay here and continue to put my mark on this team. And when people think of the Nashville Predators, they think of Filip Forsberg as opposed to just being the face of another franchise for a few years. That's got to have a lot of appeal, I think. I'm not saying that Forsberg's like one to rest on his laurels and say, oh, look at all I've accomplished. But there's certainly something to be said for knowing when you stop playing that your number is going to hang in the rafters somewhere.
So, and in terms of the money, some people have been saying things like he could make $9 million. I think he'll make more than that. I think he will make 10. I think he'll become the 14th player in the league to make have a $10 million cap hit. Now, his salary number might be different. I don't know what the salary will actually be, but his cap hit is what I'm talking about.
Right.
And a $10 million cap hit would put him, among the 14 highest paid players in the league. Do you want to make $10 million in Nashville? Or I'm sorry, do you want to make $10 million anywhere? Or do you want to make a little bit more than that, maybe like 10.5 in Nashville, which Nashville could do? They could make him a $10.5 million player every year. Like, they could do that. Again, they don't have to sign anyone else really big other than Filip Forsberg next year. They have the unrestricted free agents are Filip Forsberg, Nick Cousins, Mark Borowiecki, Matt Benning, Ben Harper, and Rocco Grimaldi.
Well, there's a few of those you may want to look at re-signing, but they're not going to command any more than they're making now.
Tiny portions.
Borowiecki's what, $2 million right now?
Borowiecki's $2 million. He'll be 33 next year.
Yeah.
They might re-sign him, but probably not for $2 million, probably like $1 million, right?
Right.
All those guys I just mentioned, that was like 5 guys, burgers and fries.
Sounds delicious. That's the first thing I thought of.
You could get for less than $5 million. I mean, like it's really not. Yeah. Nick Cousins maybe not, but I don't think they probably re-sign Nick Cousins. So yeah, there's so much money to work with here that they can get it done. It really does come to, does Forsberg want to be here? I think it's pretty clear that they're not going to sign him in the season. That seems pretty clear, right?
Anytime that's come up, it's really been like, I'm just playing hockey right now, but we'll talk about it when it's time. And I can't blame him for that. The man's on a roll. He's coming into the month that bears his name. It's not the time you want to start like letting business creep into that. Like, play your game and then you'll figure it out later. And that's really what it needs to be. I was curious though, a lot of the big name players, a lot of the guys that are going to command larger salaries on this team are already locked up for at least a few more years. And most of them with pretty reasonable contracts. I'm curious what you think if you paid Forsberg, 10.5 a year, how many years would you do that for?
Yeah, that's tricky.
Because we've seen teams that pay guys big money with long-term contracts end up in situations where you've got a couple of really good players on your team, but the rest of the team can't get the job done because a quarter of your salary cap's going to 2 guys.
So I'm looking at some comparables here. I think it could be in the 6 range. I think you could do it for 6 years. I think anything more than that would be pretty rough, or pretty difficult to pull off. Panarin signed his contract. He was about the same age that Forsberg will be. He was signing age. Where is the signing age? He was 27. So yeah, Panarin was 27, signed in New York. He makes his cap hit is 11.6.
Okay.
And he signed a 7-year deal.
All right.
So that was 7 years. What?
How many goals does he have this season? I was going to look this up earlier and I didn't get a chance to.
Panarin's really good. I mean, he's.
Oh, I know.
And he's not just a goal scorer either. He's like a really all around
but
player. But
he should be up there, I feel like.
So I guess what I'm saying is, so Panarin was 7 years, but Mitch Marner, who was a little younger, only was a 6-year deal, but that was because he wanted that contract to run up so that he could probably get paid around his year 28. So like that contract makes sense to be shorter because that puts that contract expiring right in the middle of his peak years. The rest of the contracts were all signed a long time ago, and it's hard to compare them to now. Like Patrick Kane's, like that was signed, I don't know, 7 years ago. I mean, his is probably running out. So like that was very different. Jonathan Taves, same situation. Austin Matthews even was just a few years ago, and that was very different because he's like a generational player that they were just locking up. So Connor McDavid, 12. Like I don't know that there's really any comparables here other than Panarin and Mitch Marner maybe. And then Andrei Kopitar, but even his was a long time ago. Like that was Andrei Kopitar signed his, was that pre-lockout? No, that was 2016. So Kopitar's was 8 years, $80 million. I could see that kind of contract, but not 8 years. $10 million a year for Kopitar. Even though, well, Kopitar is a center rather than just a winger, but it's tricky. I think that if the Predators were to re-sign him, it would look something like 6 by 10.5. So a $60 million contract, 10.5 a year, and that locks him up. And that would
I think that's fine.
Yeah.
I think that's a solid deal. That would get him to what age?
33, 34.
33, 34.
So then he can probably still playing well at that point. He can sign another contract elsewhere for a pretty good amount.
Or he could just keep playing here.
Yeah.
Why are you trying to rush him off, Alex?
I'm not trying to. So, again, the Predators have the money. They want to re-sign him. All of the urge, the need to sign Filip Forsberg is there for the Predators. There's nothing holding them back. Not the money, not the situation, not the team. It's all there. It just comes down to, does he want to sign here, and does he want to take the money? Now, I don't know what offer they're maybe Poile is lowballing him. I would think not, but maybe they're not giving him $10 million. If they aren't, then that's stupid because that's what he's worth. At this point, there was a time last year maybe when people thought he wasn't worth $10 million because of the injury situation.
Right.
It's pretty clear to me that when the guy's on the ice, he's as good a goal scorer as anyone in the league. Like, that's not the issue. Yes, health can be a problem, but it's not like he doesn't want to be out there. I mean, like, the guy's incredible when he's on the ice. So,
well, it's funny. I was also having a conversation about Patrick Laine, and you talk about guys wanting to be on the ice, and Laine used to be a very intimidating, threatening, goal-scoring, menace anytime he was out there, and it seems like it's just kind of waned off, and so you'll get someone like Forsberg. He's fully invested in that game every time he's out there. He's and not just like, I'm not just here to score goals, guys. He's going to do anything that needs doing. And, he's going to really tick everybody off when he's on the ice because he is not fun to play against, but he's definitely fun to watch.
So I just thought of one more comparable. I was looking at only $10 million a year. Mark Stone would be another comparable. In fact, they're the same draft year.
Okay.
So they're the same age. Wait, no, they're not the same age, but the same draft year. Let me double check that. Mark Stone drafted. No, he was 2 years before, but he was a later arrival on the scene because his Calder year was the same as Forsberg's. Doesn't matter. Anyways, his contract was 8 years, 9.5 with Vegas. So he got longer term. I don't think Filip Forsberg is getting 8 years.
I mean, I don't know. Like, I feel like term has really been what's taken the hit with everything that's happened recently. And I think teams are willing to pay out bigger money, but they're not willing to commit, to 8, 9 years. That's crazy talk. So,
well, they can't. Yeah, 9. You can't. You get max is 8, so you can't go higher than 8. But 7 is like 7 is the new 8, and 6 is the new 7. And now people are pushing. Now teams are pushing for even less than 6. Obviously, players want more, but yeah, it's tough. I mean, can you sign Filip Forsberg for more money in the short term? I mean, what if they were to give him $12 million over 3 years? Would he take that? I kind of don't think he would, even though it's a lot of money in the short run, because that would get him to age 30. But you've got to do this whole thing again with a contract in just a couple of years.
And think about the difference in expectation it being like, what would that make him if he was getting paid $12 million a year?
That would make him the second highest paid player in the league.
Expectations at that point are you'd better be just about as good as Connor McDavid, or
you're
not living up to that contract.
Rough. I don't think they'll do that. I don't
think so either, but it's definitely something to think about. But I think that would be the implication, was if you're getting paid Connor McDavid money, we need to see Connor McDavid production.
Yeah. Okay, so that wraps it up. I mean, that's pretty much everything we want to talk about. We got a lot covered. I know that. So the week ahead for the Predators is very strange. First of all, they only play one game this week. They play Tuesday against Vancouver at 7 p.m. And then that's it until February 9th against Dallas. So that's part of the Olympics start this weekend. They cleared out the schedule to prepare for the players to go to the Olympics. Players did not go to the Olympics. So they just have a lot of time off. They have like 8 days off there. So but I think we're still going to do a show. We'll probably just recap the Canucks game and then talk something. I don't know. We'll figure out something.
What if we asked for stuff to talk about? We could talk about what the fans.
We could do that. We could also talk Olympics too if you wanted to.
That would be fun.
But yeah, that pretty much wraps it up. Anything else you wanted to throw out there?
I just, I'll say this, and I'm not going to drag it out, but we've kind of followed this narrative for a long time of Hines saying that you don't want the team to get too high when they're winning. You don't want them to get too low when they're losing, and you want them to be able to take the lessons regardless of the outcome of the game and move on. And I think for me, it's encouraging that while I think maybe the team had gotten a bit too high when they went on that incredible win streak, that they figured it out pretty quickly, and when they started losing, they didn't get too low. And I think that learning that lesson about losing and being too low is going to help them not get too high again, if that makes sense, and let them kind of focus on doing what they need to do every night to get the job done, as opposed to, like we said, the big dangerous thing of turtling toward the end of a game with a lead. So all this time off has got to be a challenge, in the sense that if you win, you're coming off that win, and you've had that win under your belt for several days. And if you lose, you've had that loss under your belt for several days, and you've got to deal with that. So this is going to be, I think, a really big test of their identity. Not so much how they're playing on the ice, but sort of their identity as a team off the ice, and how they deal with what's happened on it. So I'm really
so the Tuesday's game against the Canucks is pretty important, and they just lost to the Vancouver at home recently. Yeah. So you feel like they probably want to revenge that game and come out strong to get a nice win to put them into this 8-day break.
Yeah.
The right way, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So you can check out all of our hockey coverage at AtoZSportsNashville.com. You can go to ontheforecheck.com and read Shaun and everyone there as well. Please do that. Follow me on Twitter at AlexDarty1. Follow Shaun on Twitter at SCSOTF, and we will see you next week.